Good morning, Fractal Effects team. We're still following the market from the early session, so if you're joining us, please make sure you read the disclosure in the footer section of fractaleffects.com or in the description of our YouTube page. If you're following along, make sure you're doing a demo account, as this is for educational purposes only. We are not financial advisors, and this is not financial advice. So on US 30, we have a double break to the upside and a bullish confirmation. On US 500 and NAS, we had a manipulation move to the downside and then a first presented fair value gap. We're bouncing off of it. We hit the fair value gap, create a fair value gap. There's your 1 minute fair value gap, and we're still waiting for the market to come back and tap it. NAS has not created a 1 minute fair value gap after hitting that 5 minute. So we haven't missed anything at all yet. One of these has to hit it. US 30 is a bit of a runaway for me. I'm not interested. Today's Thursday. Remember, Thursday's footprint brings us back to the weekly range, which is the aqua lines painted out by the spotlight indicator. So there's the bottom of it. There's the top of it in this 15-minute fair value gap for US 500. Right now, US 500 is the most interesting looking pair. As mentioned before, I just want to see it drop into this 1 minute fair value gap and give me an immediate rebalance. NAS has not given us anything yet. Drop to the 1 minute on NAS as well. And as mentioned before, US 30. Here's US 30's retracement zone. So after we got the double break, there has been no retracement back to one of our key zones. I'd like to see it at least get down to here, but it could just take off from here. This is the most shallowest retracement ever. This area, there's a 4-hour fair value gap under here, and I'm just not interested. There's not much room for growth. Now I'm hoping US 500 isn't using this little volume imbalance in here. I'd like to see it actually touch this fair value gap. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Just gotta wait and see. Okay, here comes the market. Again, I'm not interested if it doesn't hit here, because US 30 is a runaway right now as far as I'm concerned. And NAS has not given us a 1 minute fair value gap at all. So if it uses just this tiny little volume imbalance and it keeps running off, that's fine by me. This is where I'm interested. Anytime you have a fair value gap under a volume imbalance, always revert to the fair value gap. If there was no fair value gap here, then I might have at least looked. then I'd rather just wait for NAS to create a 1 minute fair value gap and tap that. Remember, one of these will always give you the, not always I should say, but one of these should give you the perfect setup. Every point of confluence met. And if you don't see that, then again, we're not interested. Never chase the market. We stalk the market, but we don't chase it. So we're getting a 1 minute fair value gap created right now on NAS. Let's see if that sticks. 11 seconds left. That has a higher chance of being hit than the market coming all the way back down on US 500. 2, 1, there's your fair value gap. Now again, I want to see market come back into this, tap the consequence encroachment, the midpoint, and then give me an immediate rebalance. If it takes off without us, it takes off without us, but that's where I'm interested. First presented fair value gap. There's an 80% chance that the market will come back and tap the first presented fair value gap. So even if you take one of these secondary or tertiary fair value gaps that are created, and you think, okay, great, it tapped it, now it's going to go up. No, it could still crash all the way down, take out your stop, and hit this fair value gap. 80% chance of that happening. So why not just sit here and wait for it to come back? And if it doesn't, if it's that 20% where it just keeps running off without us, that's fine. Give me that lottery ticket. Somebody said 80% chance of me winning a lottery. I take that. As mentioned before, US 30, bit of a runaway. There's our bullish confirmation. So after that confirmation, we never actually came back in. Just barely right here. I'd like to see it actually touch the 20, which it hasn't touched since the crossover here. Again, I'm not interested in any of these little fair value gaps. Here comes NAS. Come on all the way in. Okay, I'd like to see it at least hit the midpoint. Now we're waiting for another fair value gap to be created. Remember, hit a fair value gap, create a fair value gap. There you go. That's what I wanted to see. Could even go deeper, but now I want to see a fair value gap, a bullish fair value gap created on this time frame. And we'd be interested. No news today. There was supposed to be, but obviously because of the government shutdown in the US, all of this stuff is tentative. It's been canceled, I believe. Remember how it works. We either get a fair value gap here, or it takes out these lows and we look for another 1 minute again. The primary goal of this strategy and the market translator is capital preservation. It tries to show you how not to enter a bad trade setup first. Just got to be able to read it. When you follow all the rules, it's 80% accurate. If you have a strategy that's 80% accurate, keep in mind this has been back tested over 20 years. It's one of the longest back tested strategies on the market. That's why it's so good. But when you have a strategy that's 80% accurate and you have a risk to reward ratio of 1 to 3, that's what we go for. And you should technically always be profitable. But you gotta follow every single point of confluence. You gotta follow all the rules to the T. Any deviation of those rules, and that's on you. Any losses that you incur, if it turns out to be that 20% where you end up losing and you followed all the rules, that's just a business expense. That's how you got to look at it. But again, if you don't follow those rules, that's on you. That's no different than gambling. Cutting in deeper. Could take this low out and then start all over again, but we're prepared for that. Nothing of interest yet. So if it takes out this low right here, then we'll look for a new 1 minute fair value gap to be created. And look what's happening here. So that got taken out. But at the same time, US 500 is making its way back down to the first presented fair value gap. So what just happened? For anybody who didn't wait for the first presented fair value gap and took this one, even though it never got tapped, or maybe they took a volume imbalance somewhere in here, came back and took out those lows. There you go. I could run this, but remember I told you 80% chance that it will come back to the first presented fair value gap. So for anybody who thought this was a runaway market, maybe they tried jumping in thinking like, oh, this thing is pushing. No, there was an 80% chance it was going to come back to tap this. Now let's see if it respects it or if it wants to push up from here. Or sorry, I meant cut through here. Let's see. Meanwhile, on NAS, we actually have to create a new 1 minute fair value gap first, because that was the one that it ran, its first presented fair value gap here. So now US 500 becomes the more interesting pair for us. But let's see if it respects this. If it respects this fair value gap, then we'll drop down. Could just continue dropping. We'll see. Let's see if NAS takes this out. If NAS takes out this low, we got a double break to the downside. So I want to see if it respects this fair value gap here on the 5 minute. Let's play out these scenarios. If we get a double break on NAS, that's a double break to the downside on NAS and a double break to the upside on US 30. That's a tiebreaker. Still nothing, just waiting. Said this a million times, when you're doing this right, it should feel like you're watching paint dry. That's how you know you're doing it right. Calm, strategic. Three minutes to 11. There's the first version. Presented fair value gap right here. Now let's, if we come back and tap it, and at the same time, let's see if NAS leaves this one open. 39 seconds. You don't want to paint anything in prematurely, but just wanted to eyeball it, see exactly where it was. Five seconds left. Has not tapped it yet. So there's the first presented fair value gap on NAS. And on this time frame, here's the first presented fair value gap for US 500. I want to see it get tapped. One of these has to tap. This late in the game, my target would really just be highs. 28 minutes left in our window of opportunity. More than enough time. But again, I want to see it come back down to here and here for NAS. NAS on the left, US 500, and then US 30. US 30 is a bit of a runaway. I'm not interested in chasing it. It's clearly heading up to the previous day's high, but hasn't come back and touched the 20 yet. It could drop and do that at any time. US 500 has not hit its first presented fair value gap. And neither has NAS. So if these are runaways, then they're runaways, but nothing I can do about that. Just going to mark this out. So it didn't even hit the midpoint of this fair value gap. That's beyond shallow, so could just come back barreling through and hit this one. And here, it hasn't left any other fair value gaps other than this one. So NAS, again, has left no fair value gaps here. This is still the only first presented fair value gap. That's our foothold to climb this mountain up. As the market taps here, we can't climb. Let's see if we get this proper drop here. Getting a push down now. 20 minutes left in our window of opportunity. Keep in mind, there's no fair value gaps here. None. There's our weekly range low. One above it. Could bounce off of here, but still there's a fair value gap here. This is the only place I'm interested. It's called a fair value gap for a reason. It has to come back to bring fair value here for anybody who did not enter a position. Now US 500 could use this one. It doesn't have to come all the way back down here. But I want to see what's happening when it comes into this, if it comes into this. Just not interested in chasing this. Again, if it used one of these volume imbalances here, not interested. Not when there's a first presented fair value gap. Might just be taken off without us. Again, could just be pushing without us, which is fine. We wait for the most perfect opportunity. Perfect setup. And yes, there is such a thing as a perfect setup. Still nothing of interest. If it's pushing without us, it's pushing without us. Just not interested. So if it takes out these highs, we'll conclude our session. See if it drops, possibly giving us that entry we're looking for. The hardest thing to learn is patience. To sit on your hands until the perfect setup presents itself. Sounds easy, but it's not. It's willing to let the market push past you and keep running. There's enough confluence here to let me know that the market wants to push up. We have a double break and a bullish confirmation on US 30. We have clean manipulation moves to the downside that hit higher time frame PD arrays on both NAS and US 500, giving us a first presented fair value gap. That was tapped, and then it gave us a 1 minute fair value gap. It just never came back in. I want the perfect setup. But when somebody sees that, they think, oh, that's enough confluence. This thing is going up. Let me jump in. Well, where are you going to jump in? Where's your stop loss going to be? Because if you jump in anywhere along this leg or this leg, your stop loss has to be under here. So the further you get away from it, the higher your risk to reward becomes. Sorry, the lower that your risk to reward becomes. Your risk goes up, your reward goes down. You're going to have to run much, much higher to get to your destination. But what if I got in here? Right? If I got in here, that's my stop loss. That's where I'm exiting. It's a 1 to 5. Why am I just aiming for the highs, you might ask? Well, look at US 30. This is the only one that's given us a double break to the upside and a bullish confirmation. And once it passes previous day's high, that's all-time highs for US 30. It could just drop, bringing both of these down with it. So that's why the highs are the best choice. Whichever one hits it first, you'll most likely see a reaction out of all three of these. About 10 minutes left in our window of opportunity. Let's see if we get any kind of setup. Still a whole bunch of nothing. Looks like US 30 is getting close to crossing that high. Still a whole bunch of nothing. US 30 never hit that 20 EMA. US 500 never really tapped any of the lower time frame fair value gaps. And the NAS never hit its first presented fair value gap. So again, the probabilities decrease the further we get away from these zones. And if it doesn't come into these zones, it could later. That's why you don't want to enter higher. We either wait and wait for it to come back to our zone, or it runs off without us. Those are the only two options. We don't chase. That's where most people screw up. That's why 95, or it might even be 97%, I think the last time I checked, 97% of all traders fail. Because they don't know how to stick to rules. They're not willing to follow a specific regimen. They get FOMO. They think they know it all. Without a strategy, without a real strategy, you're just wasting your time in the markets. You're just guessing, you're gambling. Five minutes left in our window of opportunity, and we'll conclude our session there. Whichever happens first, either those highs are taken or 5 minutes. Yesterday was FOMC minutes, so we weren't live. Usually live Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 10:30 Eastern Standard. We will be changing that up going into November. We'll be posting on our Instagram, fractal.effects. Check us out there. And we'll also be changing it in the description of our YouTube channel. A couple of changes coming to Fractal Effects. We're trying to cater more to, obviously, our users. So they come first. We're setting up a new plan for them. And then we'll see how much time we actually have available to continue with the YouTube channel. US 500 looks like it wants to dip back down. US 30 also beginning that drop now. Let's see if NAS follows in suit and hits that first presented fair value gap. Our window of opportunity closes in 4 minutes, so it doesn't really matter. We might not make it in time. we'll conclude our session after this candle prints. Please check us out on fractaleffects.com, where we teach high probability trading. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you know when we're live. And as mentioned before, we will be changing up our schedule going into November. Just keep an eye on our social media, fractal.effects. We'll be posting more information there. Also follow us over there as well. We're always uploading our latest trades or just new educational material. So we will conclude our session there. See you guys next week. Take care.